And we've been talking about your amazing work with veterans.
Yes, we're talking about harvesting happiness for heroes and about the concept of how we help these servicemen and women when they return home from duty to assimilate back into civilian life and deal with combat trauma.
And there's so many, aren't there? I mean, how many vets are there exactly? Do you have any statistics on that for us? Or?
Oh, I do, but not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I would say that we've got probably 200,000 to 300,000 service personnel that will be returning over the next few years from service. And the government gives a statistic of about 25% of those who are returning will have some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I want to de-emphasize the D in disorder, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I think the more realistic statistic is closer to 40%, maybe even more. And the big concern with these men and women returning home is not just the post-traumatic stress that they're dealing with, but the stress on the family unit, the stress on the children and the generations to come, and the rates of homicide, suicide, and violence, which will exceed those of the men and women who were killed in action. And that's the war, the unseen war that we really will be dealing with in the future.
It's like one a day, isn't it, that are suiciding right now?
Yes.
That's just such a sad daily statistic.
Terrible statistic. And one that is preventable.
Yes. You've got some wonderful techniques that I've been reading about, and maybe you can elaborate on some of those for the audience here.
Well, we use positive psychology coaching. We strive to have a mission-based training program that's integrated using several modalities, including a coaching model versus a therapeutic model, and I'll just briefly describe the difference between the two. In a therapy model, we focus on why we feel the way we feel. We focus on processing our emotions, which are an important part of the healing process. However, in a coaching model, we become mission-driven. We set goals for ourselves, and we then take the action steps required to make those goals a reality. And there's a big difference in the two, and that's why I believe mission-driven coaching or training is more successful for the military demographic.
And give us an example of that, if you can.
Sure. We talk about strengths, cultivating strengths, so we take the best parts of our personality and cultivate those and put those in action to serve our goals, to serve our needs, to serve our community's needs. We also talk about focusing on what is right with life. Gratitude is a big part of positive psychology. Oftentimes we think and talk about, oh, my day was so horrible, or this is wrong with my life. Those hardships occur. They occur in the war experience, they occur in everyday life. But, it's wherever you put your energy, wherever you put your focus, kind of there you are.
Yeah.
So we use the positive psychology, we use mindfulness training, we teach meditation, we use yoga, we use hiking, we use creative writing, we use art, we use any kind of expression that will meet the need of the group that we're working with. And
Beautiful.
It's diverse and exciting.
Yeah. And typically, at what stage of veterans healing do they come to see you, or is it all different spots?
It's all different spots. Sometimes it's newly returned. Sometimes they have been toiling with the conventional system for months or years, and they will fall upon our programming either by choice, or sometimes there is no choice. Sometimes we get them when they come through an addiction rehab center. So it just depends. Sometimes the vet may not even acknowledge that he or she has a problem with post-traumatic stress, and that's okay, because oftentimes once you start to realize that you're having symptoms of trauma through exploring this kind of work, that your mission becomes seeking the treatment. So it works in reverse. And we get people who are exposed to conventional therapies where they go to their VA, where they're involved with antidepressants and medical intervention, and they use our curriculum as well. So there's not one right or wrong way to heal from PTSD, or let's leave out the disorder, because it really isn't a disorder. Post-traumatic stress is a natural byproduct of a war experience or any kind of traumatic experience. And when we label it with the D as disorder or disease, it's saying that it's wrong or we're sick. Something's wrong with us. And in fact, having a stress overload or an emotional response to a negative event is normal. It means we're human.
Yeah. Very wonderful work that you're doing. I can't commend you enough, really. I'm so
Thanks.
honored to have you on Buzz Pros here and Dream Shield and talking about this stuff. What? Let's really switch gears, but it's still being in your area of expertise. The recent Batman situation. We definitely have a theater full of post-traumatic victims there, don't we?
We sure do.
Yeah.
And but we also have a society that thrives on violence and thrives on the adrenaline rush that they get when they are exposed to violence in the media. And in terms of these young men and women that were in this theater, they have some healing to do. And the emotions that they're holding, you know, the fear and uncertainty about life that comes from these kinds of violent, traumatic events
Can imagine. Yeah.
are very, very stressful. But here's the thing about trauma and healing from it. The goal that certainly anybody who's working with trauma should and most do aim to work at is how do we transform that traumatic experience into growth? How do we learn from what has happened? How do we reframe those experiences so we can go on and live a fulfilling life? You know, especially in these young kids who are teens in the movie theater and in their 20s, they may have 50, 60, 70 years more life to live. And the goal is to get people to live optimally and, you know, flourish and thrive. And if that's the goal, then these demarcations or names that we give, such as post-traumatic stress or, you know, shell shock or battle fatigue, don't really matter. It's about the goal being to thrive.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because
Yeah.
I think it strikes a chord with me that really it's just been through a terribly stressful situation and can happen anywhere to anyone, anytime.
Indeed, at any time. And, you know, it's interesting you bring that up because you look at societies, modern societies that have been under the threat of war on a daily basis. You know,
Yeah.
you look at in Northern Ireland, for example, or in Israel, for example, what happens in these communities, in these societies, is they learn to live mindfully. They learn to live in the moment because you never know what's coming next. You never know when the other shoe is going to drop or that other bomb is going to drop. And I think that's one of the goals of this kind of work is to learn to live fully and purposefully
And not in fear.
and
yeah.
not in fear, to
Yeah.
make fear your friend and have it be the catalyst for change.
When you say fear your friend, that's an interesting phrase. I love that. Can you elaborate on that at all? How do you make fear your friend?
Well, most of us fear fear. I mean, we say, "Oh my God, I'm so scared of this or scared of that."
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things in life that can make us fearful. You know, fear of death is one of the number one things that people talk about, you know, being frightened of dying or frightened of having some catastrophic accident that would render them.
That's what makes the insurance business
Yeah.
such a profitable industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we take the concept of fear and the unknown, and this is not an easy task. I mean, we're all challenged with this, no matter how much education we have, you know, in psychology or in therapy, to make fear your friend so it ends up being your greatest teacher, you know, to teach you how to live in the moment, how to live fully, and how to acknowledge that fear is present, and in spite of the fear, it's not going to stop me from finding my smile, reawakening joy in my heart and my mind, doing good in the world, not just for myself, but for others.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the moment right now, and I'm really grateful that you're here at Great Spirits Ranch. Tell us what you think about the ranch for bringing some of your guys here for some workshops.
Well,
and stuff. Yeah.
I would love and will bring some guys here. I think we need to get a bunch of young guys that can come here and hike and do yoga and do curriculum to experience this beautiful spot. And it really is a slice of heaven. It is
And private, yeah.
it's very
beautiful.
private,
Yeah.
very you know, secluded, but yet you're not far away from society.
No, just down the hill, you're in Westlake
Yeah.
Village, yeah. Or other side Malibu, yeah.
So I would say anybody who's considering having a retreat here to do so.
Yeah, I've loved having events here. It's just,
It's
and
gorgeous.
Deb is the most amazing cook, too. You know, I haven't seen that side of her yet.
Will you cook me dinner?
Yeah. Yes. I can say without question.
I wouldn't dare bring her wine, but
No, you could. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And is there anything you want to add before we go?
yeah, I'll do the appeal, and you can
Sure.
keep it in or not. You know, our Harvesting
I'd say
Happiness
keep it in, of course.
Harvesting Happiness for Heroes programming is at no charge to the vets, so it's based solely on our ability to underwrite programming that comes from donations, that comes from fundraising events. So if you have the spirit moves you to participate and contribute in any way, become one of our heroes and donate now at hhforheroes.org.